All right, we want to talk in this lecture about Gnosticism. There was once a form of Christianity called Gnostic Christianity, which was extremely influential, was eventually declared heresy and expunged from Christian thinking, but it left a really huge mark. Now, in the New Testament period, the years 30 to about 150 CE, as the church structure solidifies, some leaders emerge among the bishops. Clement of Rome, who died, and he was therefore a pope, a bishop of Rome. He died in 99. Ignatius of Antioch died in 107, and Polycarp of Smyrna died in the late 150s. These men helped define Christian orthodoxy, and they are known as the Apostolic Fathers. Now, to sort of define this era, the 30 to 150 or 100 to 150, the first few years of the church, there was a profusion of writing, lots and lots of writing, but not really a lot of complicated theology. This was mostly apologetic. Here's what Christians believe and why they're not, evil. Focus on morality and a focus on Christian unity. Martyrdom was very common in this era. In fact, Ignatius and Polycarp were both martyrs. Christian thought at this time, again, was concerned with moral teaching rather than theology. In the second half of the first century, however, division grew, and orthodoxy had to establish more explicit definitions of Christian thought. Now, this second half of the first century, 150 to 200 CE, would best be characterized by doctrinal debate, an effort within that debate to have a more explicit definition of Christianity, and with Gnosticism. As noted earlier, early Christianity was not highly organized, although it was getting organized, and did not have a consistent statement of belief or a creed. And as a consequence, many widely varying beliefs were held by adherents. In subsequent years, Christians would establish creeds and support an orthodox theology. Controversy abounded, but the most famous one within the early church concerned a diverse group called the Gnostics. This is a Greek word. It means gnosis, is knowledge, specifically secret knowledge. It has come to be used for such a widespread group of people and beliefs that it's difficult to define precisely. Here is an attempt to kind of summarize some of the big ideas of Gnosticism. Gnosticism says there is a divine spark, a little bit of divinity within all humans that is immortal and comes from an unknown God. And the universe as we know it is controlled by evil forces. The material universe is evil. It is therefore necessary for a Redeemer to come to earth from the unknown God and provide knowledge, gnosis, whereby the divine spark might be able to rejoin its maker. Now, some Gnostics believed that spirit was good and flesh was evil. Therefore, the supreme God, who was pure spirit, could not have created this fleshly world. It must have been created by some secondary deity. A major idea of Gnosticism against Orthodox Christianity was that it denied the godly Christ could have been fully identified with the human Jesus. And many claim that Jesus only appeared to be human, but was actually pure spirit, and therefore he was sort of God in a meat suit, so to speak. And therefore his life, teachings, death, and resurrection were of little consequence. Gnosticism was a syncretistic movement. Important word. It means putting together ideas from different religions. It took ideas from late Judaism, from Christianity, from Greek, Persian, and Egyptian religions, from Greek philosophy, and the mystery religions. Now, we know a lot about Gnosticism because a cache of Gnostic literature was found at the Egyptian village in the Nile River Delta called Nag Hammadi in 1945. And this is still an important Christian place today. It's a Coptic Christian place. In fact, it was the site of a Coptic massacre in 2010. But we have this wealth of Gnostic literature, including some Gospels that are considered different Gospels that didn't make it into the New Testament canon that are from a Gnostic perspective. So we know a good deal about Gnosticism. Now, to summarize and make it simple, let's point out that there were two strong ideological trends in the second century, in the Greco-Roman world, that it very much informed Gnosticism. The first was cosmic dualism. This view of reality with two powers competing on an equal plane, good and evil, spiritual and material. The good is spiritual, and the evil is material. Matter is evil. Flesh is bad. Spirit is good. Several, sources from this. One of which is Zoroastrianism, the traditional religion of Persia, of Iran, prior to Islam. And it had this cosmic dualistic view. You had this good god, Ahura Mazda, and this evil god, Ahriman. And so this is one of, but not the only, examples of cosmic dualism. Plato, Platonic philosophy, with its allegory of the cave, saying that this world we see, this material world, is but a pale imitation of the real world, the spirit world, which is virtuous and good. This material world is base and bad. The second great idea was asceticism, which is an idea of discipline, self-control, especially in matters of sexuality and diet. And this reflects, a number of religions and philosophies from the Greco-Roman world, but especially reflects Stoicism, the Greek philosophy of Stoicism, which is all about self-discipline and control. So, cosmic dualism plus asceticism equals a worldview that builds the spiritual, good, while diminishing the physical, evil. And this appears in Jewish, Greco-Roman, other literature, but it is in Christianity that it is most profound, and it almost redefines Christianity. Now, not all cosmic dualism, asceticism ideas were heterodox. Here are two examples that were not. The infancy gospel of James. It focuses on the biological virginity of Mary. This is an apocryphal writing. What I mean by apocryphal, it means of pertaining to the Apocrypha, which is outside the official Orthodox canon. And more generally, apocryphal means of doubtful sanction, uncanonical. You hear a story, George Washington cut down the cherry tree. Oh, I believe that story is apocryphal. But it's an apocryphal writing, but nevertheless one that is the source of much later iconography of Mary. It is a Roman Catholic part of doctrine that her biological virginity. Starts this infancy gospel of James, which was a piece of Gnostic writing. Another was a book called The Acts of Paul and Thecla, in which Paul identifies the resurrection with a life of virginity, which somewhat syncs with some things he said that actually made it into the New Testament. So it is in the Gnostic writings with a strong ascetic and dualistic tendencies that create a powerful challenge to Christian orthodoxy as religion. Now, the orthodoxy does ultimately dismiss Gnosticism. You can see from these writings and what they're saying that Gnosticism nevertheless left a huge mark on Christianity. Let's talk about some Gnostic thinkers. In a book called Against the Greeks, Tatian, the writer Tatian, chastises the immoral Greeks, hence the title Against the Greeks. But he's equally scandalized by the existence of 4 separate Gospels, which don't even agree. And so he wrote something called the Diatessaron, which means Greek through the 4, sort of one united gospel, and advocated a form of Christianity in which everyone had to be a virgin to be a Christian. I know, you probably see a problem with that plan, but this is evidence of the asceticism of Gnosticism. Marcionism. Marcion was the son of the bishop of Pontus in Asia Minor, and he came to Rome in 140 seeking church office. It's not clear that he was a true Gnostic, but he embraced many Gnostic ideas. When ultimately he failed to become the bishop of Rome, the Pope, he formed his own highly dualistic version of Christianity. And in this religion, the God of the Old Testament is evil. Jesus Christ was a liberator of the body, which is bad, but flesh bad. Therefore, his vision created a sharp division between Christianity and Jews. This, of course, he wrote something called the Antitheses, which presents a mean old God versus a new loving God that Christians have absorbed completely. This is completely heretical, but you can see how some of these ideas have percolated into Christianity. Marcion also called for the 10 letters of Paul and the Gospel of Luke as the sole Christian text. Christians must be ascetic. So, at the same time, Tatian and Marcion are trying to reduce Christian texts and thought. Gnosticism was generally expanding texts and ideas, and the Nag Hammadi library demonstrate this. Sethian Gnosticism was very hostile to the Creator God. Valentinian Gnosticism was slightly less so, but both espoused continuing revelation, expanding prophecies and writings. We're increasing the number of writings of revelation, which and they divided people into three groups: the pneumatic, which are the elites, the people who can have gnosis and therefore salvation; the psychics, who have some possibility of growth in salvation; and the hylic, which means the mud people. In these Gnostics' view, this was most Christians. They were doomed, therefore. Therefore, Gnosticism is a highly individualistic, elitist form of Christianity. New teachers, teachings, and scriptures were advocated by the Gnostics. Only the smart get saved. Severe asceticism is required. Anorexia is good. Less body, and body is evil. This was all a powerful challenge, and there was probably a time in the 2nd century where the followers of Tatian, Marcion, and Valentinus actually outnumbered Orthodox Christians, who they considered the mud people. This was an ideological challenge, and the Orthodox response from people like those apostolic fathers I mentioned earlier had profound consequences for Christianity. Now, Orthodox responders included Tertullian, circa 155 to 220 CE, Clement of Alexandria, who died about 215, and Irenaeus, perhaps most importantly, Irenaeus of Lyon, about 220 to 203. Notice Lyon is the same Lyon in central France. The empire is extended well into Europe at this point. That's a major center of Christian thought. Irenaeus, in his Against Heresies, developed a strong response that has three parts. Number one, rather than either a truncated or expanded set of scriptures, belief should be based on a canon of works to include the Old Testament plus 27 books of the New Testament, because that represented a true picture of the church. Christians are therefore an appendix to the Old Testament rather than a retelling of it, which is what the Quran is, for example. So, a canon of works. Secondly, Irenaeus wanted to oppose Gnosticism with a rule of faith with which to read that canon, a creed, a simple statement of belief. And then finally, he said we should have an apostolic succession of teachers rather than secret or self-appointed teachers. Gnosticism is esoteric, secret learning from teacher to student. He did this by tracing the bishops of Rome back to Peter. He, more than anyone, created this pattern of bishops gathering together, apostolic succession, to read the canon and espouse the creed. Clement of Alexandria wrote a book called Miscellanies, about 200 CE, and he was saying that philosophy, not heresy, is the key to true gnosis. He was one who kind of put together faith and reason, much like Moses Maimonides and other Christians that will come later. Tertullian, however, who wrote Prescription Against Heresies, also about the year 200, he kind of took the opposite approach. He said, just say no to philosophy. Don't mess with philosophy. Philosophy will get you messed up. Just have this simple statement of orthodox belief and go with that. Regardless, though, it was in response to Gnosticism that Christianity really found its orthodox voice.